By the third week of her stay, I realized subtlety was my only weapon. Confrontation would only make me look petty. So I began small, almost invisible actions that undermined her without anyone noticing. I started with the books she liked to display on the living room shelves. I'd subtly misplace them, rearranging them so that when she returned, the titles would be in the wrong order. She noticed, of course, but only as a minor inconvenience, and she laughed it off. That laughter burned inside me. It was acknowledgement without consequence. Next, I targeted her perfection. She had this effortless charm that everyone adored, but charm depends on routine, on timing. I began altering schedules, moving items around, whispering slight inaccuracies to the staff, things only she would notice. She would pause, frown, adjust, hesitate, and I watched, savoring the small fractures in her flawless presentation. Even my father, once my ally, was becoming a pawn without realizing it. I planted subtle cues in our conversations, questions about her preferences, hints about flaws I knew she would overcorrect. Each misstep she made, no matter how minor, felt like reclaiming a small piece of my territory. But the real power came from perception. I began leaving little notes, seemingly accidental, around the house. Things like, "Did you see the broken hinge in the study?" Or, "Check the pantry for the missing sugar." She would rush, cross-check, double-check, second-guess herself. Meanwhile, I observed from my room, documenting her mistakes, building a mental map of her habits and vulnerabilities. I couldn't afford to act too openly. The subtle war had to remain invisible. One misstep and I'd look petty. One overt action and my father would step in, siding automatically with the polished, perfect version of me that she represented. And yet, with each calculated move, I felt a rush I hadn't expected. It was intoxicating to regain control, even in the smallest ways. But there was a danger I hadn't anticipated. I began thinking about her not just as a rival but as a reflection of myself, better, faster, smoother. I hated her, yes, but I also envied the very traits that made her so dangerous. And that envy, subtle as it was, started to blur the lines between my actions and my identity. By the end of the week, I realized that the quiet war was no longer about protecting my place in the family. It had become about survival in a home that suddenly felt like a minefield, where every smile, every compliment, every casual glance could be a threat. And I was ready to fight.